Welcome back to the Vue 3 Beginner tutorial series. In the previous episode, we created our first Vue project and explored its structure. Today, we're going to learn one of the most important concepts in Vue, components. Components allow us to split our application into smaller, reusable pieces, making our code easier to organize and maintain. Imagine building an entire website inside a single file. As the application grows, the code quickly becomes difficult to read and maintain. Instead, Vue allows us to break the user interface into smaller building blocks called components. For example, a page can contain a header component, a navigation component, a content component, and a footer component. Each component is responsible for a specific part of the user interface. Let's see how components work in practice. I'll open the project we created in the previous episode. At the moment, App.vue is the root component of our application. Everything rendered on the page ultimately starts here. Let's replace the default content with something simpler. Now our application only displays a single heading. This will make it easier to understand what's happening when we create our own component. In Vue applications, reusable components are usually organized inside the components folder. Our project doesn't have this folder yet, so we'll create it manually. Let's create a new components folder inside the src directory. Let's create our first custom Vue component. I'll create a new file called usercard.vue inside the components folder. The .vue extension identifies this file as a Vue Single File Component. Unlike traditional web development where HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are often stored in separate files, Vue allows us to keep everything related to a component together in a single file. Before we build our component, let's take a quick look at its structure. A Vue component can contain three main sections. The template section contains the markup that will be rendered in the browser. This is where we define the structure of our user interface using HTML. The script section contains JavaScript code and component logic. You'll often see the setup attribute used with the script tag. The setup syntax is the modern and recommended way of writing Vue components using the composition API. Don't worry about the details right now. We'll learn how to work with JavaScript inside components in upcoming lessons. The style section contains CSS, used to style the component. You may also see the scoped attribute attached to the style tag. When a style is scoped, the CSS only applies to the current component and won't accidentally affect other parts of the application. Not every component needs all three sections, but these are the building blocks you'll see in most Vue applications. For now, we'll focus only on the template section. We'll start by creating a template section. Everything we want to display in the browser must be placed inside the template tags. Vue will take the content inside the template and render it as part of the user interface. Inside the template, I'll add a simple user card containing a name and a job title. For now, we're only using plain HTML. Later in the series, we'll add JavaScript logic and custom styling to make our components more dynamic and interactive. If we look at the browser, nothing has changed. That's because creating a component doesn't automatically display it. We still need to tell Vue where we want to use that component. To use a component, we first need to import it. This works very similarly to importing files in modern JavaScript applications. We're importing the usercard component from the components folder. Once the component is imported, we can use it directly inside our template. As soon as we save the file, Vue automatically updates the page. This feature is called Hot Module Replacement, and it makes development much faster. Now notice how UserCard looks very similar to a normal HTML element. The difference is that this element is actually a component we created ourselves. This is one of the things that makes Vue components so powerful. The real power of components comes from reusability. Instead of copying and pasting the same HTML multiple times, we can simply reuse the same component wherever we need it. This is what Vue sees internally. App.vue is the parent component, and inside it, we're rendering 3 UserCard components. As applications grow, component trees can become much larger, but the idea always stays the same. Components help us write reusable code. They keep our projects organized. They make applications easier to maintain, and they allow us to build large user interfaces without creating massive files. In this episode, we created our first custom Vue component and learned how components are imported and rendered inside other components. We also saw how a single component can be reused multiple times throughout an application, helping us keep our code organized and maintainable. In the next episode, we'll learn how to work with data inside Vue components. We'll create variables, display dynamic values in our templates, and discover how Vue connects JavaScript and HTML together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.